And our top focus, more and more women are disappearing from the workforce in India. According to the data compiled by the World Bank and this report by Bloomberg, between 2010 and 2020, the number of working women in India dropped from 26% to 19%. And this was even before the pandemic. With the dawn of COVID, a bad situation has only turned worse. Economists estimate that female employment plummeted to 9% by this year. And if India is unable to restore jobs for women, this could potentially shave trillions of dollars of global economic growth. Data shows women have been less likely than men to return to the workforce. Closing this employment gap could expand India's GDP by close to a third by 2050. That equates to nearly $6 trillion. What's worse is that although women in India represent 48% of the population, they contribute only around 17% of the GDP. To make sense of this data and these numbers, I'm joined by a special guest on the broadcast, Sabina Diwan, who's founder of the Just Jobs Network, joins me on the broadcast. Ms. Diwan, thank you for making time and speaking to Mirror Now on this very significant story. We are talking about women disappearing from the workforce and its impact on the economy. The numbers are stunning. What is your take on this development? Women are disappearing, and we've also seen that this report highlights how it's easier for men to make a comeback, but women have no choices left.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. You're absolutely right. And I think this is not only something that is something that we need to pay attention to, but it's actually something that demands urgent action. So why is the drop in female labor force participation happening? Let's first acknowledge that females have been dropping out for well over a decade, even before COVID. And this drop can be attributed to factors ranging from, for example, girls staying in education longer and delaying their entry into the labor market, to what is often called the middle income effect, which is families that were doing well sometimes say to their women, you no longer need to work. One income is enough to support the family. So those women drop out. But even underneath these seemingly positive developments, lurk very extensive patriarchy and constraints on women's empowerment that prevent them from participating in labor markets. So we know that women still carry the disproportionate burden of domestic work and unpaid care work. And COVID has obviously made this much worse, with women having to take care of kids staying home from school and seniors and then their husbands being home. And so the domestic care burden went up, so women dropped out even further. There's also not enough demand for women workers. And the reasons for this range from employers that don't want to invest in safe transport, hostels for women, lighting, separate toilets. They also don't want the liability of having to care for a woman's safety. To those employers that simply believe that women have limited capacities relative to men. So until we actually address some of these underlying causes that then manifest in inequities in the labor market, that manifest in poor working conditions. So these factors together then mean that women drop out of the labor force, and we see this ongoing decline in female labor force participation, which, as I said, has been going on for more than a decade, but certainly has accelerated post-COVID for all of these reasons.
Absolutely. So, Sabina, what are the solutions? Because what we have seen is that policymakers have, or the legislators have either failed to see this pattern, or not enough is being done. Because what we are seeing is that this is related to the economy, and why not equal gender participation in the workforce is a catalyst in order to boost any economy. So why is it not happening in India?
That's a great question. And the first answer to that is that the positions of power are still disproportionately held by men, right?
Yes,
we need more women leaders to begin with. But that said, and I think we need to take very concrete steps to make sure we have more female politicians, and not just politicians, mukhyas on paper where really their husbands or brothers are calling the shots. Not in that way. We actually need more women in positions of power. But beyond that, I think, it's very easy for society to subscribe to these patriarchal norms and say, you know what, let's look at gig work. Let's just give women options to work from home. I'm all for gig work. There's certainly merits for gig work, and whether I like it or not, the train has left the station, gig work is growing exponentially. But we really need to ask ourselves as a society whether just fostering work from home options for women truly gives them a choice to be empowered and claim their space in public forums and outside the home, right?
Right.
We need to empower our women in jobs like that. And we need to make sure that the basics are in place. There should be, employers should be mandated for having safety, for having, childcare, for having safe transport, separate toilets. All of these factors are extremely important in fostering better participation for women, minimum wages, making sure that they're implemented and that there's pay equity and conditions of work equity, right? Why would I want to go to a job where I'm treated badly, paid poorly, unequal? Why would I want to do that? I might as well stay at home and invest in my children and domestic work. So we need to address all of these factors, both in the home in terms of addressing patriarchy and reducing the unpaid care burden on women, but also equally outside the home, making sure there's urban infrastructure and ancillary policies, childcare, etc., that then allow women to go out and claim public space as well.
Right. Thank you so much, Sabina Diwan. Very, very important points that you made. And thank you for your time. Hope somebody is watching this and the policymakers will take a cue from this and do something about these women who've disappeared from the workforce and initiate some action in order to bring them back so that this economy of ours can get a boost from women participation. Thank you for joining us on the show.